Excited to be here. I'm not a public speaker, so I may sound nervous, but it's really exciting. I was telling Pastor JC and Crystal yesterday, a lot of places I go and share, I have to kind of pitch the ministry and try to get people to catch on, but you guys are already on board my sport team, so really today I just get to share the wins, because everything I do or this ministry does, I hope. Yeah, there we go. Everything I do, you guys are part of. So, you can have a car, but if you don't put gas in it, it can't go. So a missionary has to be sent, and you guys help send me. So you guys get to share in these wins today. A lot of what I do is in other countries, but some things I do is also here in the States. And one of the things I do is work with a nonprofit that is called Project Zero, and it helps kids in Arkansas that are in foster care get adopted, and it helps tell their story, and very similar things that I do on the missions field. If you can hear somebody's story, you can catch the vision, and you can see what's happening, and you want to make an impact. So I want to share one of these videos. I actually did this last year, and I just finished up 7 more of them the last 2 weeks. So those are just going out into the public, but I wanted to share you one from a year ago because I have an update after it plays. But this is Jamal. This video I'm going to show you. He's a kid, and man, you can just see the despair in his voice and his face whenever you watch his video. But just some really cool stuff happened from that. And these videos really just are about showing people the kid themselves for who they are as a person, and not just a stack of paperwork, which if you've ever been through adoption or foster care, that is all this paperwork all the time, and you just see a list of everything a kid has done, good and bad, and it's overwhelming. So these videos will give you a little example of one of them, and kind of just show you who these kids are. And this first one's Jamal.
Have you thought about what kind of family you would want?
No.
Do you think if you were adopted, do you think your life would be any different than it is now?
No.
Why not?
Because, I just know. My name is Jamal. I'm 14 years old. I'm about to be in 9th grade. I like to play video games and play basketball. I love a family that likes basketball as much as I do. My favorite team is Golden State Warriors, and my favorite player is Klay Thompson. I'd like to be a chemical engineer.
That's cool. Why do you want to do that?
I like to build stuff and chemicals, I don't know. And I like video games. Yeah, I really like video games.
Are there any things that you think would be good about being adopted?
Yeah, I can get DHS and foster care. That's probably it.
Can you tell me about what foster care is like?
Not good. Not good.
Why not?
Just all they do is just toss you around facility, foster house facility. That's it.
People saw it and was really attracted to it and wanted to help the kid. And you said in the video his favorite player was Klay Thompson for the Golden State Warriors. So everybody kind of got together and was trying to think of all their contacts they could make, and they wanted to try to get him an autographed basketball from Klay Thompson, and just like a special gift. And people just started, went all over the country. I have a few connections from my media days, and just trying to find managers and all this stuff. And someone had a connection with the Dallas Mavericks, who Golden State was playing the next week, and he said, if you can get Jamal down here to Dallas, we'll get him on the court for the shoot-around before the game when the Golden State Warriors come. He had I have a picture. He got to go down there, and this is him with some of the Golden State Warriors, and this is actually Klay Thompson on the left, and he got to shoot a few baskets with him, and Klay was telling him, work on your arch and do all this stuff. It's really cool. Just to be a little bright spot in his day, but the ultimate win for this video is Jamal has a family now, so. So again, it's something you guys are a part of. Project Zero is also, I think most of you know, but we adopted Hope this last year in summertime in June, I believe it was, right? And she kind of cried like a little baby. I actually edited Hope's videos, how we found her as well. So it's another way I'm not going to show the video today. But all right, get it together, Brendan. Some other stuff I did this year. I can't show you everything because I have a bunch, but another cool place I went was Peru in South America. Worked with a missionary there. His name is actually Brandon too, so the two Brandons running around Peru. You can guess how that went. Pretty crazy. A week or so. He works in the Amazon part of Peru in the Amazon jungle, and we met a guy that he was telling me about. His name is Pedro, but he calls him the Paul of the jungle, because him and his brother, he grew up, they would go out into the jungle and find these nomadic tribes and try to reach them for Jesus, but they would always move, so it was very difficult. It's like the hardest thing you can do, to find tribes in the jungle, and some of them want to kill you, if they don't know you. You're an outsider, so it's just the very hardest thing you can do. And Pedro, him and his brother were in the jungle one time, and his brother got bit by an insect or something, and he got really sick. And they're in the jungle for 3 months at a time, and he ended up dying. And Pedro had to take his brother out of the jungle over his shoulder, and of course that really challenged his faith and what he was doing, and just really a struggle. And about that time, 2 or 3 years, he quit going to the jungle, and he met Brandon, the missionary in Peru, and they just started talking and try to rekindle that flame and start getting back into the work. And now they're back, and they've reached, I think, like 17 tribes or something. He'll tell you in the video. You'll see in a minute. But so this is one of those impact stories. I go not just to take pictures or shoot video, but to find an impact story. Lives have been changed and the work that's happening, and so people know it's good soil to sow into. They want to give. You want to be a part of successful things that are happening. So this is kind of an example of an impact story. You're going to hear Pedro and his story, but you're also going to see the missionary and where he came in and what's happening now. So, as Pastor JC says, so what, now what? What's happening now, and how can you be a part? So I want to share Pedro's story with you today.
Walking into the jungle, for many it's hard, but not for me, because I love the tribes of the Amazon, and they need to know Jesus Christ. My name is Pedro Shubingawa. I work as a missionary in the Amazon region. Jesus Christ saved me when I was struggling with alcoholism. My life was lost without Jesus Christ. I had a brother who had been a believer before me. His name was Lonesome. He'd been praying for me for 3 years, for me to surrender my life to Jesus Christ. He encouraged me and gave me the passion for the tribes of the Amazon. We traveled in the Amazon, visiting different tribes in the jungle. When they told us about the tribe called Remo Aika, we decided to contact them. We took 3 years looking for them. This tribe is one tribe in the Amazon that are nomads. In order to find them, we had to travel in the jungle 2 or 3 months. We were living in the jungle for the purpose of taking the gospel to them. One day a bug or insect bit my brother. It had a parasite or bacteria that caused him to die. I had to take my brother out of the jungle. I carried him on my shoulder for 17 hours. Before he died in the hospital, he asked me to make a promise that I'm not going to give up in the missions field. He told me, even if I die, you have to continue the work. One of my daughters, she had a business. She was encouraging me to keep doing the missions trips. She was supporting my trips financially. 6 months into her helping me, somebody told me that she was in a really bad situation in the hospital. I got to the hospital, and when I found her, she was dying. And when she died, I went away from God for 3 years. Not to commit sin, but I was just really discouraged. I didn't want to do missions anymore. I didn't attend any church.
I met Pedro through another pastor in the city. And at the time, Pedro had just lost his brother, had just lost his daughter. And Pedro had had bad contacts or bad relationships with American missionaries in the past. Pedro was really down, wanting nothing to do with God. And as we sat there that day and I shared the vision of I Am with him to reach the tribal groups of the Amazon, it was like something changed in Pedro's heart.
When Brandon came walking to me, I can tell you I saw in Brandon's face Jesus' face. That moment I began to cry. I knew that God loves me. But sincerely I told Brandon, I think God forsake me. And Brandon said, no, Jesus Christ loves you. You know the Amazon, and we can do a good work. From that day, I've been working with Brandon for 12 years so far, and my heart is now, I gave it to the Lord, to work anywhere He sends me. Everything I do is for the glory of God.
I like to call Pedro the Paul of the jungle. Pedro is a guy that has had a lot of impact, in fact, probably more impact than anybody else I know in the jungles of Peru.
One night, I had a dream. In that dream, I was deep in the jungle. From different places in the jungle were coming different people from different tribes. And they told me, teach us the gospel. I was able to understand them, their language. But I told them, I don't know you. And they told me, the God that you serve, He knows us. Come, please. So that encouraged me to do the work with Brandon. When I remember that dream, my heart just broke. Because sometimes we cannot get there where they live. I said to God, give me the strength in order to reach them. If I can't, please let someone else. Since I began the mission trip, I've reached 27 tribes. With Brandon, we have contacted 18 more tribes. We are seeing the glory of God working, how the mentality of the tribes have been changing with the power of the gospel. If I have the resources, I would love to reach every one of them. If God allows me, I will reach them.
Pedro said, God has called me to the tribes of the jungle, and if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on the river. Pedro is a true man of faith. Would you join I Am in praying for Pedro and supporting Pedro financially as well, so that Pedro can continue to take the Gospels to the ends of the jungle?
I want to thank you, everyone. Those who are supporting us, you are missionaries with us in the Amazon with the support you're giving. Thank you. God bless you greatly.
Really fun and adventure in Peru, and we went out to the Amazon, and actually the whole city is in the Amazon where I flew into. We went even further into the Amazon, and we were coming back, and the boat was starting to take on water. So they're like, here's a bucket. There's no other way home. So you guys start bailing water, and we'll keep on trucking down the river. So all the things in the Amazon that could eat you were just coming over your mind. So, but it was really fun. And since then, I talked to Brandon Carroll, the missionary there, often, and man, I just love his heart. And they've planted so many seeds over the years, and now they're seeing them prop up. And tribes are actually contacting them. Hey, come to us. Come teach us. So just wild stuff. How the tables turn there. And since these videos have come, he told me a couple months ago, giving is up through the roof this last year. Teams are coming. Not a lot of teams were coming before. He's had multiple teams this year since we've been there. So just really cool stuff to be a part of, and again, see that impact that media has helped his ministry there. Another place I've been, I don't have anything to show from it, but I went to China before everybody was coughing and stuff over there, so no worries on that, guys. But I was over there and got to meet in a house church that was, private and obviously not advertised, and just a crazy experience to be a part of that. And the government can listen in on all their phones, and probably ours too, but it's not illegal for us to meet here today. So it's just when you go into a place and they say, all right, everybody put your phones, we're going to put them in a closet in another room before we go over here in this other room and have church. It's pretty pretty eye-opening, and I actually met while I was there. Our friends the Picketts, they're missionaries in Iraq. They also have a ministry that takes the good book into another neighboring country of Iraq, and they've sent a lot of good books into that country. And he was praying. I didn't know at the time, but he was praying like, God, give me a story. I need to hear feedback, because I hear there's revival going on in this country, but we just can't. It's closed, and we can't get any real feedback of this impact it's having. And so I'm in China at this meeting, and this guy that is from this other country that they send the good book into shows up to this meeting in China, in a different part of the world, and he's studying at a university there. And he said, yeah, I'm a believer because a few years ago someone smuggled these good books to us in my country, and they gave them these countries, and this wild story happened. I think actually Pastor JC has shared it with you before, but this wild, crazy God story happened, and he said, man, I know. He's like, it doesn't make any sense. I study science. Yeah, I'm all facts. He's like, it doesn't make any sense in some levels, but I know God is real. And so I immediately knew I had to tell the Picketts like what's happening, and they just couldn't believe it. They were shouting and praising God for this story that he was praying for. He's like, just needed an impact story, and I didn't even know that was happening. And I'm in a whole different part of the world and meet somebody from the country that they needed to hear a story from. And so it's just cool to see God orchestrate that. Another trip I went on this year was to work in Cuba, and I know you guys have heard a little bit about that. Somebody from here, I think, went with me. Oh yeah, it's Pastor JC. he went with me, and we had a lot of laughs and crazy time. Cuba is on fire for Jesus. That's the only way to put it. It's very humbling to be there. The traveling was a little bit difficult because communications are harder and your phone doesn't work, and just several things we come across. But man, it was such an honor to be in Cuba and see what God is doing there, and meet the missionary Daniel Irizarry. I'm going to show you his video next. And Brother Norland, pastor, one of the local pastors there. Man, he's just one of the coolest, just on fire guys that you've ever met, and just the way God gives them plans, and just seeing them come to life, and just, man, it's just inspiring. So I got to shoot a video, actually 3 videos there, and Brother JC was with me, and had a great time. And here's a little clip from Brother Irizarry.
My name is Daniel Irizarry. I am a missionary to Cuba. The first time I came to Cuba in '89, I did not realize that it was a completely unreached people group. In those years, there may have been a 1% population of evangelical Christian believers in the nation. But when I shared the gospel message with a cousin for the first time in '89, and he looked at me after sharing the gospel and said, Danny, that's beautiful what you've just shared, but how do you expect me to believe in God when all my life I've been told that there is no God? Man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I think God, even at that time, was laying the groundwork in my own heart, preparing the soil, not knowing that later on I would be called to be a full-time missionary in Cuba. And over the years, you guys have heard about the revival in Cuba. I mean, an incredible revival from late 1989 through 94, 95. And the fruit of that revival is that today, there's a passionate, systematic, continual evangelization from all the churches in Cuba wanting to reach their nation for Christ. And that's proof that it was an authentic move of God, because they have a great passion to win their nation for Christ.
Así que uno de nuestros
So one of our roles or focus is to mobilize, train, and send the church to the neighborhoods to fulfill the Great Commission. We already have over 200 small groups that meet. In those groups, we open them in non-believers' homes.
así que hemos visto
We've seen hundreds of people, hundreds of men and women with their families, be transformed. In the last 6 months alone, we have baptized people every month. And all that is to say that many people are coming to Christ, and their lives are being changed. They're being transformed. And that's the simple reason why we live. That's why I live.
Right now, we need to help the Cuban church more than ever. Strike while the iron's hot. There is such an openness. In fact, there's a statistic from our evangelism group here in the nation that they have a percentage that they keep of how many people say no when they knock on the door. No, meaning they don't want to listen to the gospel. And in the last more than a decade, that number oscillates from 0.4 to 0.6 of 1%, which means for every 101 homes that you knock on to present the gospel, at least 100 homes will listen to the gospel. That is something that's pretty incredible. I would dare say there are very few places in the world where the spiritual atmosphere is that open. And so I believe that we need to come alongside the Cuban church in prayer. We need to come alongside the Cuban church by coming and catching their vision and letting them know there's people outside of Cuba that haven't forgotten about them and are interceding and praying for them. And yes, helping them with resources in every sense of the word. They do a lot with very little. And if we put resources in their hands, God only knows what's going to happen in Cuba in the next 10 years. And so I'm excited, and I'm very happy to be a part of what's going on in Cuba. I know that everybody's not called to the foreign field, but everybody is called to help, whether it's by prayer, resources, and yes, we need some people to answer the call, to say, you know what, I'm willing to put everything aside, my dreams, I'm willing to say, Jesus, I'll go wherever you want me to go, I'll do what you want me to do. And I will say this, it's been an awesome ride, it's been an awesome experience. The moment I said yes to Christ, it's been nothing but an adventure in my Christian walk with God.
That was an amazing trip. You can go on my website as well, missionfieldmedia.org, and see even more of the videos I shot in Cuba and all these other places. The last place I went this past year was to El Salvador. I actually had been there to shoot video a year and a half ago, and led a team from my home church, Highland Park, to El Salvador, and very similar to the trip we're about to do with you guys and a group from your church. And man, just an awesome time. Lives have changed, and people's eyes were open to missions, and not just there, but to bring it back home. Like, this missions is a lifestyle. It's not just a week or something you do or give $1 to. It's something you engage in, even at home. So that's what I love about missions, is it can open your eyes. You know, and leading a team wasn't really my, I don't want to say calling, but it's not what it's not media related, I guess. But the whole point of Mission Field Media is to get people involved in missions. That's to go from idle to active, to put the car in drive and to do something. So in a way, that is also part of Mission Field Media. And it reminded me of a story in the Bible, so I'm going to read a few scriptures for you. It's not a story you've all heard before, but I love thinking about it in the missions standard. It's Matthew 25, 14 through 30. It's the parable of the talents. And it says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey who has called his servants and entrusted them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. And also who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he had received the 1 talent and went and dug it in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered me 5 talents. Here, I have 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, and I'll set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also he who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me with 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you had to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathered where you scattered no seed, so I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gathered where I had scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give to him that has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, into the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So that got pretty dark pretty quick for the guy that didn't do anything with his talents. So I just wanted to point out a few things that stuck out at me in this verse and why. One, that he gave talents according to their ability. And that's all of us. I mean, think about it. Talent in that day was, a bag of money, basically, a certain amount of shekels. And but he knew he can entrust a certain amount to certain people, or a different kind of talent to a different kind of people. Just like my talent is media, some Pastor JC is preaching and speaking and everything he does, and also sound, media, and music. And everybody has different things they can do, medical and construction. And so he gave talents to each of us according to our ability. So that's not just random and didn't just happen. Something else that stuck out to me was what they were given set the expectation for what return they should bring. So the guy that was given more, he was expected to bring back more. The guy that was given less was expected to bring back less. And the guy that had the least didn't even bring back anything. But he would have been expected to bring back just the one. So the ones that did bring back stuff were rewarded, and they were put in charge of more. He said, you were faithful for just a little bit. I just asked you for a little bit, and you did something, and now I'm going to give you more. And the guy that didn't do anything, not only did he lose his talent, he was cast out. He was not a part of their circle anymore. So what caused the guy that didn't have much to hide his talent? It was fear. He said, I was afraid. So what if it doesn't work? What if I make myself look like a fool? What if I lose my master's money? But the master didn't give it to him to hide. He gave it to him to invest and come back and bring back more. And he felt at that. So that's really the only thing that's not acceptable is to not try, to hide your talent, to do nothing. So again, Mission Field Media is to engage people in missions. So how do you find your how do you find your talent, and how do you apply it? Looks different for everybody. We've all been given different talents according to what we're able to have. And it's just an answer to yourself, and it's something you can ask yourself is, am I doing something personally to fund missions, to go and do missions, to use my talents to have a part in the Great Commission? I mean, that is something you can just be honest with yourself. You don't have to answer to me. But I am honored that you as a church support my ministry, but you got to personally also ask yourself, what am I doing personally to use my talents for missions? And that's between you and God, but I just wanted to leave you guys kind of with that challenge of just think about your own lives and what you're doing with your talents. And I did want to leave you with one more video from Cuba. Me and Pastor JC, we were in the eastern part of the country earlier in the week, and at the end of the week we went to the western part, to Havana, and stayed with Pastor Jose and Maya, who had traveled in the back of a truck for 10 hours, back of a supply truck, across the country to get to this pastor's conference. So on the way out, we actually flew with him. For the only second time to fly. He's probably, 50 at least. Only second time to fly. So nervous. And Pastor JC wouldn't let me mess with him. But we got to fly, and we were back in Havana in an hour, which was, just mind-blowing. And got to see their ministry. And they work with people on the street and try to rescue them and get them off the street and let them know Jesus and change their life. And, they have very, very little support, and he actually leaves their place they've built for recovery. I'm trying to think of like a rehab kind of sort of restoration center. Thank you. to go into the city and ride a bike. He rides a bike 2 to 3 days a week with all the tourists and stuff to make money to fund the ministry. That's how they do. They live their life with the purpose of, I got to make this ministry go forward because this is what we're living for. And they built this facility, and they were living in the same room with 18, 20 guys off the street in bunk beds on the floor, and they actually still live in another room of the facility. It was just very humbling, and again, just that challenge of, what am I doing? Am I living my life with a purpose to use my talents? What can I do to fund the ministry, to make ministry happen, and the Great Commission come about? So we shot a video there, and Pastor JC also brought it back, I know, to you guys' board, and Gospel Lighthouse Church is a part of their ministry now too, which I know is a huge blessing to Pastor Jose and his wife Maya. So I just want to leave you guys with this video as well so you can see more.
Jose Hernandez Prior. Approximately 25 years ago, I found myself incarcerated in one of the prisons here in Cuba, and Jesus came in my life. While I was in prison, God allowed me to help others in my same situation. He put me in a situation where I was leading them as a new convert in Bible studies, and I knew that God was leading me to help them so that they could receive healing, a healing of the soul. And of the 10 last years I was in prison, for 8 of those 10 years, I found myself pastoring a group of new believers in jail as a new convert myself. Once we came out of prison, we started helping a younger couple that was doing this kind of ministry of reaching the people in the streets. So we came alongside them for 2 years and worked and learned under their ministry. And on the 3rd year of working with them, I believe that God spoke to me audibly, confirming that I was to go out and start my own ministry, doing the same kind of ministry.
The words would not be sufficient. When I first went to their center, they had 2 rooms, and the guys that they had picked up off the streets were literally sleeping on cots on the floor, and they had about 12 to 15 men there. And then to get to know, the way I knew him, met him, was him riding a bike taxi on the streets of Havana to be able to feed the guys. I haven't met too many people that could say that they rode a bike taxi for 10 years to feed the guys that they were called to disciple.
We ask you to pray so that God would keep glorifying Himself through these efforts that we make, because we try to love them with all the strength that we have. And we understand God's word says, love your neighbor. And in this particular ministry, our neighbors are those who are in the streets. We want to love them like Jesus loves us. And I think the most important thing is to reach out to these people and give them an opportunity so that they can escape this eternal death they are facing. And for me, this list of people that are being taken from the grip of Satan so that they don't die a premature death. This list that is being formed is a very important list to our Savior. It wasn't an apostle or prophet that said these words. Jesus Himself said it. He said that those that are on the streets, the hungry, the thirsty, those that are in prison, the sick, whatever you do to any of these, the least of these, the Lord said, any love you show them, you're doing it to me. Jesus said, you're showing me that love.
Even in the Cuban context, I haven't met many people that are willing to do what they do the way that they've been doing it for now 11 years with very little support. So I would ask you to pray for them. If you feel led from the Lord to support them, by all means, do so. I know that they will have a great reward, and those that get behind will have a great reward when we step into eternity. They are wonderful people, passionate people, sacrificial people, and I thank God for them.